Thank you to Richard and Hoover. That was, yeah, it's very strange being called a hero by personal heroes, but I think just to touch back on that point, as Richard said, everything that you read in this book, everything that Palestine Action do, everything that every activist has ever done has been done by a human being just like you. There's nothing that means you can't do any of the things that these people are doing, So yeah, I'm now going to pass over to Solly to talk a little bit about Camp Beagle and about, yeah, all the amazing work that's going on here and the last 3 years.
Thank you everyone for coming to this amazing book launch, for coming to Camp Beagle and supporting our campaign to close down FBR ACAS. Quick thank you to Dan from Animal Rising, to Huda and Richard from Palestine Action for your inspiring talks. Even it's gonna make it very challenging now to follow on from you. Also, thank you to you, Tom, for writing your Neighbour Kills Puppies. I think it's very impressive to go from, oh, wouldn't it be nice to write a book about this, to actually be here holding your book on your book launch. It's an amazing achievement and a sign of your commitment to this cause. From everyone here at Camp Beagle, we are absolutely delighted to hold your book launch here and to host all of you here. But it actually makes complete sense because SHAC was a massive grassroots anti-vivisection campaign that was started at the late 90s to close down a laboratory that is only just 5 miles up the road. It was then called Huntingdon Life Science. Now we all call it as Lab Corp. Same lab, different name. Unfortunately, inside that lab, 30 years later, they're doing exactly the same toxicology testings that they were doing back then, repeating it over and over different animals. So on a personal note, Tom, I am grateful that you have taken the time and effort to write this book. Because like you, I was involved for many years. I joined the animal movement in the late 90s, and back then it was a time before mobile phones, before digital technology, before social media. So therefore, much of what happened on those days recorded on VHS tapes that are kept in people's attics, and I feel that much of what happened then is getting missed out. Back in the 90s was a very, very successful time for the anti-vivisection movement. Just from the top of my head, I can tell you 5 breeding farms that were breeding animals for laboratories that were closed down thanks to the group of grass pressure campaigns. We had Consort Farm Beagles closed down, Hillgrove Farm breeding cats for vivisection, Regal Farms breeding rabbits for vivisection, Shamrock Farm breeding monkeys for vivisection, New Church Farm breeding guinea pigs for vivisection. I'm sure there was many more other success back in the 90s, and I am grateful that you, Tom, have taken the time to record part of that history that otherwise it will get missed out, and that you've written it from our perspective, because there's plenty of news articles and court documents that do not tell our history. So following on the history theme, I would like to tell you very, very briefly a little bit of my history on the animal rights movement in order to highlight 3 key points. You did 5? I'm reducing it to 3. So I arrived in the UK in 1995. I was vegan a year later, and I was actively involved in animal rights campaigns by 1997. However, my introduction to veganism came through my involvement in social justice projects and environmental campaigns. From squatting social centers, providing services to the community of Brixton, to supporting road protests and treehouse camps, trying to stop the destruction of the countryside and the wildlife. You only need to look a little bit further back in the history of animal rights and you will find links, direct links, with the anti-slavery movement, with the protection of children campaigns, with the suffragettes. And yes, it is true that each campaign must keep their focus to achieve their aims and goals. So here at Camp Beagle, our focus is always those beagles inside those sheds right now. But at the same time, it's important that we remember and we are conscious that the animal liberation movement is part of a much bigger wave of other fights against oppression and dominion, and a fight to seek a better and more compassionate world. That was my first key point. Thank you. I did enjoy my time in the social justice movement and environmental campaigns, but I knew in my heart that what I really wanted was to campaign for animals. But it wasn't until 1997 that I moved to Cambridge, when one day I stumbled on the streets upon an animal rights stall, and I met a woman called Sue, who I don't think is here today. Sue knows she's not here. She's a very old lady now. And she invited me to a local animal rights meeting in Cambridge. 27 years later, I am still here proudly campaigning for animals. So this is my next key point. There is not one single winning tactic. There is no one magic strategy to reach our goal. The strength of the animal liberation movement partly lies on the versatility of our actions and the diversity of approaches and strategy. I believe it's the sum of all of these actions that will cause the cracks that we need to make the animal liberation a reality. Anything that you can do to campaign for animals will add to the pressure that we need for those cracks. Whether it's a simple outreach stall in the streets that can turn a passerby in a long-term activist, or whether it's risking imprisonment on an open rescue to give animals the opportunity to live in freedom, love, and care for. So on my third point, I find that it's quite paradoxical that nearly 30 years later, life is throwing me back at the beginning where I started. Still campaigning against that lab up the road, now has a different name, same lab. Campaigning against this dog breeding hellhole, different name, same breeding site. I am truly heartbroken for every dog that is born inside those gates and for every animal that suffers in the laboratories. But even I'm here back where I was at the beginning, I can assure you I am not disheartened. I am quite the opposite. I feel very, very hopeful that vivisection has got its days counted and the writing is on the wall. I see the animal liberation movement as a dynamic process that moves and develops with the times. Just like in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was a very prolific and effective period for the anti-vivisection movement. Then it was followed by a few years where there was hardly any campaign against animal testing. And I believe that now we're entering a new period to fight animal testing. not only vivisection is back on the agenda and being discussed among animal rights groups, among society, politicians, the industry, but I believe that at this point in history, we got even more scientific evidence that proves that animal testing is a total failure. There is every day more scientists coming out and speaking against this practice. We have technological advancements that can produce now better and more relevant scientific results, especially regarding toxicology testing. Non-animal methods are already a reality. And we also have a society that is much more inclined to support the end of animal testing. We can see that as there is more and more politicians now questioning this practice. I feel that animal testing has its days counted and it will be finished. So therefore it's very important that we continue to do this work to fight vivisection, because the more pressure we put, the quicker we will get to see that writing on the wall become a reality. That's the end of what I've written. I would like to say that we are, everyone here at Camp Beagle, absolutely delighted of all the support that we've been getting, and we're really proud to be at the forefront of the anti-vivisection campaigns in the UK at the moment, and we would like to have every bit of your support to carry on this work. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Tom, for coming here.